Hey, how's it going? So I was working on my status bar and the scripts for the different blocks in it, as one does, and I had a bit of an interesting idea for how to tackle a problem with it. And that problem being, I wanted a block here to show disk space, but I have a bunch of different disks, and I didn't want to have to write out every single disk. So what I ended up doing is having a little thing that cycles through, so I can actually click here to cycle through my different disks, and I can just see the usage percent right now. But what if I want to see the space remaining? Well, I can actually just middle click to change the format, and that's now the space remaining on the disk, and I can also just cycle through there. Right click actually cycles in the reverse direction. Middle click again is going to change that format back. And then I also made a bunch of other miscellaneous changes with status bar related stuff that I'm going to go over here. And I first wanted to actually point out one thing that I wish I'd mentioned in last week's video, but I didn't. And that is that Pywal can actually set built-in themes. So this is a Pywal theme set on my NeoVim here. This is, well, it's the Grovebox theme if you're familiar with color schemes. But this is actually getting set from Pywal. And if you do wall help here, it's going to show theme here. And you can actually set a built-in theme with wall. So it's not pulling the theme from my wallpaper here, which I will put the name of the wallpaper in the description, the name of the painting, I always do. Anyways, so it's not pulling from that. It's actually pulling from the built-in color scheme, the Grovebox color scheme that I told it to use, which is how I'm getting that in NeoVim here without actually having Grovebox installed as a theme plugin for it. So I just wanted to point that out since I think I should have pointed that out in my video last week. So you could have, just Pywal, and if you're going to set your Pywal color scheme, and Pywal supports, plenty of common color schemes, so you could set, any of those built-ins and get that in NeoVim just with Pywal. Anyway, so onto this script, which is what I'm sure you're here for. The first thing to do is just define this array of disks. I've got, 5 set up here, but you could add, as many as you wanted. And I have also set an icon for each disk. You could get rid of this if you wanted, or instead just give it a name, but I like having the little icon, and since all my disks are named after animals, it makes it pretty easy just to, use an animal icon for each one. So next up, I'm going to define a file to save the current disk and the current format as a number. So as I go through the disks, I've got, 0, 1, 2, etc. And the formatting, I only have 2 formats that I'm showing. I've got either the literal space number or I've got the percentage. So those 2 different formats are just going to be 0 and 1. And the reason I'm saving it to a file here, I actually thought about doing this just as a variable in the script, but I realized that wouldn't work because this is DWM blocks, so every time that the script is getting ran, it would just overwrite that variable. I can't actually just continually add numbers to that. And then I was thinking, alright, what if I could do some sort of an environment variable? But once again, DWM blocks being what it is kind of gets in the way with that because of how it's being ran. And I was thinking about, maybe there would be a way to patch it, but then I thought, why don't I just go with the simple solution, which is just saving it in a temp file. I mean, 2 numbers in a temp file, no reason not to do that. Like, if I just go cat this file right now, it's just under temp, and then DWM blocks, disk info there. So, yeah, 1 and 0 saved in that file. Pretty simple, it gets the job done there. I'm sure somebody else probably has a more creative idea or a better way to do that, so if you have a better way, let me know, but this works. So then I'm just going to create that file. If it doesn't exist, echo 00 into that file to just initialize it if it's not there. Next up, I actually want to read that index number and format number out of that file, so whatever is there right now is going to get read out of it to say, alright, if I'm on like disk number 2 right now, that's where we're at, so when I click it, go to disk number 3, right? So next up, I want to set the current disk and icon per the index number. So if I'm on, disk number 2, we're going to set and make sure that the current disk is defined as being on disk number 2. Icon is going to be defined as being on disk number 2. And next up, I want to actually use df here. Now this is, just simple df stuff. So df-h, if I do like on my home directory here, we're just going to get, basic numbers about it. So like size, used, available. So I'm just using awk to get the numbers I want. Of course, you could change what numbers, if you wanted to see like the total size, you could add that in and, have a different mode that's going to show total size. And that's actually worth mentioning here. You could add more formats if you wanted. If you wanted to middle click and cycle through like 5 different formats or something, you could do that. You could add as many as you wanted. Just be aware that when you're doing that, change this line here into a case statement instead, since I only have 2 formats, so I have format 0 and format 1. you know, format 0 being percent and format 1 being space, right? So I can just check if the format is equal to 0. If it is, then use the percent-based format. If I change it to 1, so if I middle click it, then use the space-based format, so saying, you know, I've got 132 gigs of remaining space on my disk, right? So I'm using just a very simple logic statement here, but I could change this to case. You know, I could technically do a case statement of 0 and 1, but if you were going to add more formats, you would have to use a case statement there. So anyways, here is where the clicking part actually happens, and this uses the status CMD patch for DWM. So I will put my video talking about that in the description if you don't already know what that is. I'll also just link the page for the patch if you want to just go get the patch. But anyways, that's what's allowing for clicking and then running a command on click. So left click, go to next, right click, go to previous, and then middle click, change the format. Right, so anyways, next up, so what I need to do here is somehow update to go to the next format number, right? So I'm just using arithmetic, add 1 to the index, modulo, and then check the number of disks in the array. So the reason why I'm using modulo is because I want to wrap around. So my array has, you know, however many disks in it, and I don't want the number to increase past that number of disks because obviously that would be useless. So I want to actually check, you know, how many disks are in that array, and that's what we're doing here, you know, number of disks in the array. And then modulo, so wrap around and just start at the beginning again. Right, so then send that and then send the format to the disks file, and I'm just echoing the format as is because I don't want to change the format when I left click. I only want to change the format when I middle click here, right? And then next up, on a right click, just do the same thing but in reverse because we're going to subtract 1, so just go backwards, right? And then middle click is going to be doing same index number, so I don't want to like change to a different disk when I middle click, right? I want to just change the formatting. So then just add 1 to the formatting, and since I only have 2 different formats, just modulo 2 there, and then in the disks file, just echo that to the disks file. So that is what's going on in this script here, and this was interesting to make because, you know, I was thinking about, you know, I want to have more information here, but I don't want to have a ton of like disks just written along in the bar here. So, you know, how can I accomplish this while still, you know, being economical with the space? So once I was thinking about that, I got to thinking about other different modules here and, you know, what I might want to do to kind of save space but still add more info. So I went to this status playing block here, and I actually wanted to display album names sometimes. So I've got artist name by default, so artist name, song title, right? But sometimes I want to see the album name, and I don't want to have to, you know, go open my player, which always sits on my other monitor anyways, so I don't want to have to, like, go over to my other monitor, figure out, you know, what window my player is on, and go look at the album title. I want to just be able to click, see the album title, right? So that is what I'm doing here, and it's the exact same concept of having this file where the format that I'm on gets saved, just 0, 1, since I've got 2 different formats. I've got the normal format and the alternate format, and when I go to the alternate format, it's going to show the album. When I go back to the normal, it shows the artist, saves to the file. Essentially the same thing, and I'm thinking about how else I could add this in other scripts, etc. So if you have more ideas for how I could add this sort of clicking through to get different information on scripts, feel free to leave ideas if you have more ideas. But the last thing I wanted to point out is in my system stats module here. So I added icons since I was messing around with the nerd fonts, and I was like, all right, yeah, I should add icons to everything. Why not, right? But I updated the notification a little bit, so it's a little bit nicer. I added fan speed as well. As usual with the awk statements here, you're going to want to have to make sure you're getting the right names depending on your hardware. Like, for example, my CPU, if I grep this, or sorry, not grep, if I awk this, this is going to get me the right information, but just check based on your hardware and get the right info. But anyways, yeah, I added fan speed. And then I added a little thing that's going to show a caution icon if my CPU temperature gets too high, just to alert me of that. I also added if my GPU temperature gets above 50 degrees, it's actually going to show it so I can monitor it, and then if it gets above 70, then it's going to put the little caution icon there. I don't have GPU showing constantly just because my GPU temps are generally fine. I do have CPU showing constantly just because I'm using the stock cooler for my CPU here, and sometimes it does get kind of hot, so I like to be able to keep an eye on it, but GPU is usually fine, so I don't really worry about it too much. But anyways, just the rest of the script I think is the same here, but I just, you know, updated a little bit. Anyways, that's the stuff for now. Everything's gonna be available on my GitHub. If you have better ideas than me for how to do stuff, let me know and I will try to update stuff accordingly. Feel free to either leave in comments or, you know, submit pull requests or whatever, and I will, you know, try to keep an eye on that and update if you guys have a better idea than me for something. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Peace.